Hello, and welcome to another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, joined by the best co-host that money can't buy, Wil Masisak. You know him as Bradshaw to Ben, and Korey Karbowsky as Corey 39. Well, gentlemen, the game kind of went how I expected it to. Unfortunately, I think both Will and I both predicted the Cowboys win on that, or was I wrong? Will, did we actually predict wins?
You're the only one. I predicted a Steelers win because I'm contractually obligated this year to be wrong almost every pick that I make on the show. So yeah,
Well,
gruesome.
either way, definitely some painful moments to get through in that game with some of the offensive inefficiencies, some defensive stuff. Yeah, just very disappointing in general. I definitely felt the game turn once Nick Herbig got injured. Once that happened, I was like, oh, we're not getting pressure on Prescott. And then sure enough, Nick Herbig goes out. Prescott leads them on two 70-yard plus drives, I believe. We go down, get winning score with 20 seconds left. Yeah, just a lot of things really just disseminated about this game and kind of the aftermath too. But let's start in the game. Well, what is Tomlin thinking not taking that timeout at like the 40-second mark to prolong the game further? I think it was like the 40-second mark because there was a legit chance to save 10 seconds to either give your offense that potential time to go down and match with the field goal or just match better defensively. And then he ended up taking it with like no time left to put one defense out on the field, and it still got beat. So, Will, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts about that?
Whenever there's ranting to be done, you start with me. I I feel you,
I
man.
I, I know who the lead horse is in the ranting race.
Well, I mean, the problem is, we're recording this on Thursday. It's like, the way we had to suffer through this game and like get it until it was like over at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like doing the show at 2 o'clock in the
That's
morning would have
true. We
been
had the like 2 hour
weather
weather
delay.
delay. What it felt
Yeah.
like too.
So I mean, that's the feelings were so fresh then because of the frustration of like having to stay up for that. The timeouts thing, I don't know, other than I think he thought he was saving it for the timeouts fairy, and then he ended up having to use it later. But by the way, I've gone on these rants before. I hate any coach that uses a timeout when he's behind, like using his timeouts not to save time at the very end of the game or at some point where, it makes sense. You don't have the ball, the other team has control of when they snap it, you use your timeouts. Using a timeout when you're on fourth down and it's 4th and 1 and you're going to go for it and you can't get your shit together well enough and then you're going to call a timeout. It's the worst thing you can do. It's like just either go for it, rushed, or don't go for it and kick it. Or better yet, if you're not organized enough, get a delay of game and then punt it away, right? Because there's just not really a big benefit to calling a timeout in that situation. Much more valuable to use it later. In this case, he didn't use it at a time where he could have saved himself some time. And secondly, the thing he called it for, I felt like they could have taken the penalty or they could have taken an offside. It's only half the distance to the goal. Like how much difference is it going to actually make in terms of the chances of Dallas scoring? It's like the clock is really your enemy there. The clock is your enemy. It's like you're either going to stop them or you're not, but either way, you need clock. There's no downside to saving some time in that situation. It's not like Dallas is going to run 15 plays and need that extra minute. So I felt like in general, coaches don't use their timeouts very well. Secondly, I don't think using them when you have the wrong defense on the field or you're have an extra guy or whatever. It's like take the penalty, be done with it. And thirdly, I'm not convinced that Mike Tomlin's mentality about how to use timeouts at the end of the game and hours are ever going to make sense with each other.
Yeah, Corey, I'll throw it to you. You have anything else to say on that lack
I
of?
mean, here's my thing. If you're gonna be the team where, you're gonna have to do everything right to win the game and you're gonna run the ball and you're gonna have to rely on defense, your head coach has got to be on his P's and Q's himself. Like, I mean, those are like game losing decisions, you know? So I think that's where I just kind of, it makes you shake your head with our head coach is, you don't want to go and put points on the board. You don't want to do this, but that means you got to be perfect. And, he's never been great with challenges. He's always been shaky with timeouts. I think it's just kind of another example of a long list of things he's done over the past couple of years where it's just like, he can't do that with the brand of football you want to play. I think, we a lot of the stuff we were worried about in the off season and going into the season kind of popped up. Lack of depth, you know, as much as we liked Beanie Bishop as an undrafted free agent, he's an undrafted free agent for a reason. None of us really had him above like the 5th or 6th round. People want to complain about him. It's kind of like you get what you paid for. Like
you expect, yeah.
That's like you haven't invested in the nickel position ever. You fell onto a pot of gold when you had Mike Hilton, and then you let him walk. And so you haven't invested in the nickel position in a decade, and you wonder why you give up all this stuff. I mean, granted, they only scored 20 points. It's just more the Beanie Bishop complaints is really like I'm just shake my head at him. But I don't know. We lost playing our brand of football. No person had more than 3 catches. Just same kind of close your eyes and just run the ball kind of offense. I don't know. We need a QB, probably need a new head coach if we ever want to get to the Super Bowl again. So for right now, it is what it is.
Now,
hey, Bill, so Jeremy, last week I did say in the previewing the matchup that Dallas has a really good, wide receiver depth, and also threw in Hunter Lemke there. But I said the Steelers will, the path to victory for Dallas would be if they can protect well enough to get the ball out to their receivers. Because the thing is, the Steelers pass rush has been covering up for, a little bit of the inconsistencies and lack of depth in the secondary. And as the edge rushers got, left out of the game and they were like double and triple blocking, TJ Watt, at that point, then you're going to have guys open. There's just not enough. There's not enough coming from, the guys towards the end, especially the Steelers got down to like their 5th edge guy, by the time the game was towards the ending stages. So that was never going to be a good recipe for success. I don't think it's as much about Beanie Bishop as it is just about Dallas protecting better than the other teams we played this year and having a chance to expose, have better receiver depth and better protection than the teams we faced. It exposes the flaws. We've been saying this now for how long, that this game, this style of game and the way the Steelers are constructed, they're constructed to have their offense control time of possession and to play against teams without elite matchup ability, without good quarterback play, and without good protection. So if you face a team like we did with Kansas City in the playoffs or Buffalo, they just have too much talent and too much quarterback play to play the Steelers style of game and expect to win. Not to mention, like, we're going to talk about the other side. I'm sorry, Jeremy, you go ahead, because it's not even worth talking about the defense. The offensive problems were so magnified in this game. The defense got hurt. That was really their biggest problem. They got hurt and they couldn't get enough pass rush, and exposed a little bit their underbelly. But the offense,
yeah, let's dive a little bit more into the game, and then I'm going to have some pretty damning evidence, is how I'm going to put it, after we talk more about the game. First off, it's really bad when you have guys that want to be leaders or guys you would like to be leaders not being able to do it. But I'm also going to bring it back. It's also bad when your leaders come out and say, things like Mika Fitzpatrick did after the game, saying our defense is too complicated. We need to simplify and play faster. So it's like, well, we'll get to George Pickens in a second because that was the first person I was alluding to. But it's bad when you're I don't know if Mink is actually a captain or not. I think he is, but it wouldn't surprise me if he isn't or is. But it's bad when he comes out and is like, guys, our defense, we're trying to do way too much with way too little. And you guys have mentioned some names. Beanie Bishop, He's, a rookie playing his 5th game ever in the NFL. What are we asking him to do? What are we asking Peyton Wilson to do? Who's starting to play a lot of snaps in the middle of that defense, where it seems like that's where the issues have been. Deshaun Elliott. This is not a knock or whatever, but he and Minka, it sounds like they have not quite been on the same page yet, and I think it's just more due to the lack of chemistry and him being a new piece back there too. Minka kind of said, we're young and we haven't played a lot of games yet together, so we're still trying to figure each other out. But big thing is the defense is too complicated right now. So Korey, I'll throw it back to you. What is it about this defense that needs to get simplified to kind of capitalize on like who we have, I guess, is the way I'm going to put it.
I mean, I said it from the jump. We're playing a lot of coverages. Every NFL team plays a lot of coverages. So I'm and honestly, this is beyond me. What is the normal amount of difficulty for an NFL defense and a slightly more difficult? That's that's above my pay grade. That's just how many play calls you have, how many pre-snap adjustments you're trying to do. That's stuff where you kind of got to be in the building. I think my thing with it is, I said from the, it could be simple, or simpler. We were going to have the personnel where we were going to have to, if you blitzed a lot, you could make it so you get more double teams off of TJ. Why you would bring someone like Patrick Queen in, who is a good blitzer above all else. Landon Roberts is a good.
Played his best game as a Steeler today.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Patrick Queen. He was at least flying around making tackles and stuff.
Maybe we watched a different Patrick Queen, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well.
Wilson.
No, I was disappointed with the delay in game. It might have been a little crankier and tired, so maybe I did watch the wrong version of this game. But
I don't know. I just the just slow to react to run plays. Just like if you watch, there was a run play where Logan Wilson was playing opposite him, and if you see like the read and react skills of the two guys side by side, and you're like, oh my god, like one guy recognized the play and triggered immediately, and the other guy didn't, just like wandered in the middle until somebody came and hit him. And I feel like that's just all too common refrain with Patrick Queen. But
yeah, but Korey, sorry, go ahead. I shouldn't have interjected.
That's okay.
I did. I'm the one that did it.
I just, with the personnel they have, Dante Jackson, good man corner, Joey Porter, good man corner. You've got a guy in the slot where ideally you'd like to hide him. I do think Cam Sutton is probably going to help when he comes back.
Bring about him.
Personal issues aside. But I don't know. It's just, we said these offseason additions would make sense if they were going to do a lot of man blitzing and spice things up, and they just don't really get a lot of standard stuff up front. So it has to be the back end that they're trying to do a lot with, because up front, they're really not doing much. It's let TJ go at it. It's let Cam Hayward go at it and beat his man, not really doing anything to make sure they don't get one-on-one or anything like that. So I don't know. The defense will be fine. I mean, they'll be good enough to win games, especially probably when Cam Sutton comes back and you get a little healthier towards the later half of the season. Cross your fingers so TJ doesn't get hurt. There was one fact I saw. Minka hasn't had an interception since 2022.
No, and they of any kind since 2021.
Wow.
And they have like you see Minka, like they'll go towards him. And I think where, it's kind of ironic, but I think that one not only shows he's not playing to his level, because you would have think he'd come across something, but it's on the coaching staff. Get him in position, get him closer to the box, get him down in the nickel. I know he doesn't like doing it, but you think he likes having 0 turnovers since 2021 or whatever it is. Like, you gotta bounce this guy around. Like, he could play the slot better than Beanie Bishop. You got Edmonds back there who can play back safety. Like, start doing more with him. Give him the harder roles. Simplify it for everyone else. But I don't know. It's the offense is a real issue here. We're harping on the defense, but the offense is really. But I think the offense is just a head coach issue. I don't know about you guys. I think that's really the bottom.
Oh, well, let's transition to offense, since you kind of talked about defense there, unless, Will, you want to build off that real quick.
No, I just about the offense. I'm not sure I agree with what Korey said, but go ahead. You set it up first.
Well, we talked about what's wrong on defense. we know there's a lot wrong on offense, you know. I was like, we could do a whole diatribe of what's wrong on offense from every position on this team when it comes to offense. But what's really disappointing, and I don't understand the strategy with Pickens here. I don't understand the whole snap count thing. It's like George Pickens is like 21 freaking years old. What are we saving him for? Snap count, load management? Give me a break. This isn't the NBA. Even though right now George Pickens looks like he's playing in the NBA with his lack of effort on routes. Just if I'm not involved in the play, I'm just gonna stand over here type shit. It's getting really thin. I think across Steeler Nation. I don't care how talented he is. It's ridiculous that we can't get more effort out of who is supposed to be a star, a number one wide receiver, but there's zero accountability towards Pickens right now. And I was reading something today. When you are a number one wide receiver, you are a reliable piece. You could not put that word on Pickens if he was covered in glue. So,
well, you don't want to be on. You don't want to be Andre Rison, where
yeah, but
where you're going is anybody's guess, including the quarterbacks. But okay, first of all, on Pickens, I do think that all the coach speak is just BS. That they're basically they were like, if you're not going to give effort, we're going to not play you as much.
Well, and then he had the eye patch.
Yeah, well, the eye black thing is like, okay, let's separate these into the pieces. As far as the effort part of it, the only mitigating thing I will say is I have played with and for people who told the backside, the receivers who were not in front of the play to like not run their routes so hard so that they have energy to, when they're on the, more involved in what the call is. So like if the call is it's going to be a speed out at 4 yards to the tight end on the other side of the field, and that's the number one read, and it's going to be wide open. Like I understand maybe somebody thinking like save your energy, don't mess with that. I don't operate that way. I feel like the message you're sending is if I don't look like I'm going hard, the only way I'm going to beat you, be targeted, is if it's a trick play. Like that's not a very good way to get yourself open. The way to get yourself open is to work hard on every route as if you're getting the ball and you're the first read every time. Going to open it up for somebody else maybe, or if that first read for whatever reason doesn't work, maybe you end up getting the ball. But I do know that some teams, and maybe Arthur Smith is more like this, where he's like, look, I don't want you to use up all your energy when you're not the number one target. That which begs the question, why the hell isn't he the number one target most of the time, right? It's like that right there, like how they used him in the game was just so weird. And so the thing about the eye black, and think about him being 21 years old, and the thing about in general his attitude. Yes, it's his fault for making it into a thing right now that we're talking about that's affecting the team, that's affecting his time on the field. Like that's on him. It's a choice that he made, and it's not a path that I think I would go as a young player on my first contract. I think that's different if you're 30 and you've been an all-pro for 3 or 4 years, and then suddenly you're thrust into like a new coach and a new system where they're just like ignoring you. Maybe you have a stronger message to send, but that doesn't mean I don't share his frustration. I get it. Like I understand totally why George Pickens is pissed off, and I think anybody who watches this offense got a clue. Poor guy's had his entire career playing with garbage, So with the play calling and the style and the attention that he's getting, and the style of the offense that they're playing and the quarterbacks that are throwing it, he's really not had it very well. So I'm sure there's going to be some frustration. How do you get it worked out? I think that's the head coach's job, is to figure out how to take whatever the situation is and whatever's going on with the player and figure it out. Press the right buttons. You don't have to capitulate to him. You have to figure out a way to make it work. And if you can't figure out a way to make it work, it's really your fault.
Yeah, Korey, you want to build off that, or you have any comments on that either?
Yeah, I don't. My thing is, it's like, here's what I'm almost concerned about is last time we saw these kind of issues arising, it's like Mike Tomlin, for all the things we criticize him for, is the players coach. He's the guy to get these knuckleheads in line, these head cases, nut jobs, all of these guys that are just little out there to kind of fall in line. It's like, Antonio Brown started to show, some cracks in the armor. Then he goes somewhere else, and you're like, oh my god, like it's like if Pickens is acting like this, here, I wonder what he's like somewhere else. Now, I think for Pickens, I think it's purely a performance thing. Dude hasn't had a QB to throw to him yet. Imagine what Ben would have done with a jump ball guy like this. It would have been. Think of how many back shoulders he threw to Antonio Brown. There hasn't been one guy who can consistently throw that ball to Pickens yet. They just kind of throw it towards the back of the helmet of the corner, and he used to go and get after it. So I think if you get Pickens a quarterback, I think Pickens stops complaining. Now, is he absolved of guilt? No. Like he needs to fix his stuff. But, let's just say hypothetically, let's say we had Kirk Cousins. Let's say Kirk Cousins was with the Steelers right now. I bet you George Pickens has 4 times the amount of yards he has, 4 or 5 touchdowns, and I bet you we're not hearing a word about this.
Yeah.
So it's not, and that's with, or even a hypothetical Arthur Smith, at the helm. So I don't know. I think it could work with Pickens here. I think we're gonna have these issues until he gets a QB, which, if I'm a receiver who is as talented as he is and knows what he can do, I probably be annoyed too. Maybe not throw the tantrums.
The problem, Jeremy, is that the 2 biggest problems are the head coach and the quarterback, and those are the 2 most difficult problems to fix. They have other problems. They got a lot of other problems that are reasonably easy to fix, including getting George Pickens on board. Right, probably one big game from George Pickens, and he's like this is a distant memory, right? But changing the head coach and or finding a quarterback that can play on a rookie contract, especially, like, good luck. So I think we want, we eagerly would like to see the possibility of those things happening, but that's the problem. When your most significant problems are the hardest ones to fix, I think that puts you in the, that's what purgatory in the NFL is all about.
Yeah, then you bring up the head coach. I'm glad you went there. Been a lot put out there, after this game about how putrid the offense is, and that this is how Mike Tomlin wants to win games or whatever. The fact that he hasn't won a playoff game in damn near a decade, has barely gotten there the past few years. Like you said, quarterback purgatory since Big Ben retired. And I'd be willing to bet, and this is just my opinion, but I would have rather had 3 more years with Ben than the shit that we've seen the last 3 years. Like I don't want to circle back to it because it's old news, but I definitely felt like they kind of forced Ben out a little earlier than he wanted to go. You cannot tell me that even a 60% Ben Roethlisberger would not have been better than what we've tried out there at quarterback the past few years with Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Justin Fields. We haven't even seen Russell Wilson yet, so I can't, say that. But I would have easily signed up. I don't care what the outside world would have said of, Big Ben's done, blah, 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 blah. At least Ben would sling the ball, At least he would put the ball. At least he could run a hurry up offense and could put the ball places where it needed to go. Korey, you said it perfectly. Pickens would have been a great back shoulder target, and Deontay Johnson may have never been traded, if he is getting the target share that he did in his last year with Ben. But anyway, water under the bridge. But
here's the thing: when Tomlin first got here, Ben's influence on the offense was here. He was like nearing, the beginning of his peak era, right? He'd won a Super Bowl, etc. And Tomlin was a new coach, and all from the other side of the ball, mainly, right? But as their careers went on, they kind of passed each other. And when it got to the point where, Ben had less influence on what was going on, it's like, you can stay and play, but we're going to bring in a new offensive coordinator that you don't really want, and we're going to play a different style of football than you really want. You're not going to wing it out. You're not going to play from shotgun and wing it around the field. Like, once it got to the point where the coaching desire for not only, we keep saying it's almost like a code word, certain kind of game that he wants to play. It's a kind of game that keeps games close, wins at the end, really minimizes points so that there isn't, a big swing in points. then even keeping Ben 3 more years or 4 more years might not have really helped that much because we still, as you can see in 2020, for example, the style of play that they were playing was much closer to what we're doing now. It didn't really matter that much, right? So, 2020, 2021, it was like we already started to see what was, what the coach wanted to do because he had more influence. And until that's, like that's a big part of what's going on now. But now it's happening. Now he's running that same kind of offense with lesser talent, and it's really exposed what the flaws in that thinking are. As soon as you make a mistake, it doesn't work. Even one offensive lineman that's not on the same page with everybody else or giving up plays. Roderick Jones, excuse me. Everything goes to shit. If you have running backs that are mediocre, they can't ever make a big play. Therefore, you have to have like 20-yard drives. We know, the quarterback can't make magic at the end of the game, blah, blah, blah. So you know what all the flaws are, and you can see them exposed. It's like we've been talking about this on this show, the three of us, for a really long time. So I'm sure that even within the Steelers facility, they got plenty of people inside there that know what's going on. How can they not?
I think my thing is like with Tomlin at the helm, how he wants to have his offense ran. The only person that could save it has to be such an electrifying playmaker at the QB position that it just doesn't matter what kind of cards they're dealt with on like third down, that they'll just go and like Ben could go and just make something happen. Now, granted, you had Ben, then we had one of the best running backs in the NFL for years. We had Le'Veon Bell. Now you've got nothing. Najee's a good dude. He's a hard worker. Najee's not a top 20 back in the NFL. He's just not. It's not in any regard. And then even Warren, who looks like he was soundly better than Najee last year, kind of pigeonholing Warren into a running scheme that he's not as good at, which I pointed out in the offseason. He's been injured now. He is not getting any burn even when he's healthy. It's you don't have the backs for it. You definitely don't have the QBs for it. And maybe Russell Wilson comes out. I'll wait and see on that one. Maybe he comes out and he's a superstar. But like you're gonna need someone like unless Cam Ward falls into your lap, there's no other like Carson Beck's not gonna fix the offense. Shadur Sanders isn't gonna fix the offense. There's in terms of like those like ridiculous play extenders, Taylor Green's not gonna be a Steelers pick. It's not a Tomlin kind of guy. These guys who can just go out and just do insane stuff, they don't fit the bill. That's how we ended up with a Kenny Pickett. That's the thing. It's like, you say you take a Malik Willis back then. Within a year if Malik Willis has got it or not, then you get another stab at it. But you burn time. You see if Pickens has. Now you're trying out Justin Fields, who's 1 year away from an extension. You bring in Russell Wilson, who I think, all things considered, is probably the right guy to try and fix Tomlin's stuff, but probably 6 years ago. He probably just doesn't have the juice in his legs anymore, but we'll see. But it's just, you need such an electrifying playmaker that I don't think Tomlin has the capabilities of drafting because that's not the kind of guy he wants. He needs someone who's like a polar opposite of him, which means it's not going to happen.
He needs a robot. But yeah, I think that's the thing, insecure coaches. And I think Tomlin, for all his success, is very insecure about, the effect of players on the game. By that, I mean players not just executing what they're asked to execute as opposed to doing something beyond that, right? I think most coaches worry that although it may work out great if players go beyond what they're supposed to do in execution, there's a possibility that they might fail and make it worse. And that's what the coaches don't want to have, right? So they love quarterbacks. This is why NFL teams can't draft quarterbacks. My rant on this. But it's like they're looking for somebody to do what they tell them to do and don't mess up. And they're avoiding these guys who have an actual gift for the position because there's more risk attached to it. That was the downside. That's what everybody said about Patrick Mahomes before he came out. And thank God someone like Andy Reid was like, oh, yeah, no, come over here. I have that safe guy already, and I can tell you that that's not what I want. That's not what's going to win. And, the difference between, Alex Smith is, what Carson Beck is, right? And Cam Ward is closer to what Patrick Mahomes, because I don't want to say anybody's Patrick Mahomes, but in terms of the styles, the archetypes that I'm talking about, you can see it. It's like teams drafted Mitchell Trubisky because they thought, that'll be the team that drafts Jalen Milroe first overall or whatever is like the team that would draft Mitchell Trubisky. It's the same principle of what you're getting. Well, he can use his legs so he can figure out what to do, and he doesn't make that many mistakes, and blah blah blah. And that other guy's a coach killer, man. If you draft Cam Ward, it doesn't work out, you're losing your job. So do we have that regime in Pittsburgh? No way. No way they're drafting somebody that's not safe. So I try to be optimistic about it. That would be like my dream scenario, as Korey said. He really nailed it. That having somebody who is like such a great playmaker that they can overcome the ideas of offense that we have. Great, but that means you basically have to bring in a guy who can make turn chicken shit into chicken salad on third down, and who doesn't necessarily get a chance to throw as much on first down as a good NFL team would ask him to do. And yeah, there are not that many guys that can do that and still shine. Maybe we'll get that someday. I mean, we haven't mentioned Justin Fields' name. I don't know. I'll ask you a question, Jeremy. Do you think Justin Fields is notably different in what he's doing this year compared to what he did in Chicago?
I mean, my overall answer would be no, but I do think you've seen some things that he has been better at this year. I think he's been better at the short passing game. He's been getting the ball. He's been fairly accurate on short throws and actually getting it there. But overall, I'd say no.
I mean, I guess to follow up question, do you think he's on some trajectory where it's like, okay, it's finally clicking in for him and he's getting better, and man, is he going to be good the next couple of years?
Absolutely not. No, I think you see what you have. He's not drastically improved. People were so quick to like say that over the first few games when the Steelers were winning. It's like, oh, Justin Fields is looking so much better. It's like, no, guys, but he just hasn't played anyone that good yet to expose him, and now we're to the exposing part of the schedule. You guys say, I think, Will, you say this all the time, the return to the mean. He had a few games where people are like, oh, wow, he's really showcasing his stuff, but now everyone knows how to play him again,
I think here's my view on Fields, is that he didn't succeed in Chicago because it was not great coaching. For technique wise, they had him doing a bunch of weird stuff. Footwork wise, they tried changing his arm angle, so that's already all bad. But then they ran super stale passing concepts, stuff from like 10, 15, 20 years ago.
That doesn't sound.
And that's, it's not as bad as it was last year play calling wise, but the way that a guy like Justin Fields ends up becoming a superstar is you have to start by like unchaining them, and then you reel it in. Then you clean up everything after. And I think Chicago is just throwing so many things at him and trying to change this and that. He's never able to do that he was never going to get fixed in a place like Pittsburgh, because so think about it like this. I don't know, if you guys have played, golf or tennis or anything where it's like a swing sport, but in golf, you're never going to get to where you're hitting a 300-yard drive down the middle when you're swinging at 50% with your driver. It's just not, you can't do it that way. You have to learn how to swing through, then you clean up everything else after that. And it's kind of the same thing where a guy like Fields isn't going to be able to learn how to, oh, when can I make this throw? When can't I? He's not a guy that you want with that kind of arm thinking. You want him going out, ripping it, flying all over the place, trusting his instincts running wise. And I'm just saying, if you want a guy to be elite, with those tools, you got to let him off the chain, and then you got to reel him in. And Pittsburgh was never going to be the place for that. He's going to look like he does now, where it's going to be very mediocre, because that's how they want their QBs to play. They don't want their QBs to be ripping 70-yard posts with a safety running underneath of it, because that guy just has an FU kind of arm. That's not a throw that's encouraged. Just take the check down. So I think that's my stance, was that, maybe we could talk ourselves into it in the off season, but this was never going to be the place where he got fixed just because of the mentality for a guy like him. This is where you get the most out of a guy like, Kirk Cousins. Like, you get the most out of a guy like Cousins in Pittsburgh. You're not going to get the most out of a guy like Justin Fields in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
in short,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry. In short, kind of from what I've heard from you, Korey, we haven't, on offense in particular, we really haven't let our players play since Big Ben left. We have neutered the majority of any offense since Ben left. And really, Ben's last year wasn't spectacular by any means, but it's been better than what we've been dealing with.
Ben was neutered as well. Ben was neutered his whole last year. That was one of the big things where he got forced in the Matt Canada stuff. And we were like, oh no, Matt Canada stuff is going to work once Ben leaves. Remember, that was the talking point, because there was
yeah.
God.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I also think it is fair. I had this discussion on Twitter this week. It is fair, though, to say also they don't have the talent to really be a good offense. Like, so they have both neutered the guys that they have, and they've also kind of spent so much time and money and energy bringing in the defensive guys. And yes, they've recently started now with this, young offensive lineman. That is a good strategy, I think, for eventually getting there. But yeah, they have bottom of the barrel quarterbacks, that whoever they could get for cheap. They have like a totally mediocre running back room. When Cordero Patterson looks like a superstar, as your running back, it's like, all right, well, your running back room is not so good.
Mm-hmm.
The tight ends are good at certain things, and I think probably Washington is a good example of a player that could be unleashed and probably do a lot more, but that's doesn't seem likely to happen for him. And the other guys they have, like Hayward and Freiermuth, and maybe Michael Pruitt has done his thing, but he's older now. So yeah, it's like that's not really super outstanding, and like their wide receiver room, like forget it, right?
Well,
So right now they have like a couple of rookies playing on the interior who are really lighting it up. Dan Moore, who has like settled into being at least a decent player for the moment till he faces somebody that's going to overpower him. And then a lot of issues. We have Broderick Jones right now, might have had the worst game of his career against Dallas this week. And it's like, it wasn't just physical problems. He was making mental errors where he was going the wrong direction on zone runs and like just missing blocks, not whiffing or like barely trying to get to climb. And, I was like, I don't really understand how that situation got so mismanaged, but here we are. So they got offensive line that's got issues. They have zero depth left. If they suffer, basically they're down to like, one injury from playing. I don't even want to know who on the outside. Spencer Anderson, I guess, at tackle, which is frightening. And they're, the wide receiver situation is like an unhappy George Pickens and a bunch of other guys that really aren't allowed to do anything or can't do anything. And then, like I said, a mediocre tight end room, mediocre running back room. So, you gotta, in order to solve problems, you have to, figure out exactly how to fix each thing. It's hard to do that when there are so many parts in the in the moving parts that are a problem. Sorry, I'm going on and on because I could talk all day about
yeah.
the
So
problem with the offense.
Yeah, I think we're all to the point where the only thing or the only way it gets fixed with Tomlin at the helm is nothing short of a like full implosion, like a 6-11 type of season. A season where we might only see 3 more wins, and I'm not saying that's definitely doable with how we finish on the back half. Because the Bengals are starting to show signs of life like they always do. After the first few weeks of the season. Even though, think about it this way, guys. At least we don't have Deshaun Watson at quarterback. But Baltimore is going to be Baltimore. They always play us tough, even though we've had Lamar's number, when we've played them in the past. So it's like we face every single division opponent in the back half of our schedule. The one maybe positive light is, Russell Wilson has been a full participant at practice yesterday and today. No restrictions. He said he's ready for when he's called upon. So I don't think it'll be this weekend. Just from the sounds of it, it sounds like they're going to keep him as the emergency 3 and for maybe one more week. But it kind of sounds like if Fields struggles this week, could turn it over to Russell Wilson the week right before the Steelers have a bye. And then it could be Wilson's team from that. You know what? That's exactly what's going to happen. Fields is going to play 2 more weeks, and then it's going to be Russell Wilson's team the rest of the freaking year. That's exactly what they planned on in training camp. We'll give Fields a run for his money. We'll throw Wilson out there so we don't have to give Chicago our 4th round pick. We'll give them our 6th and all that. It's been a conspiracy from the beginning. I digress. However, one last thing I will say from this past game. Can either of you tell me what the most impressive pass of the game was from this past week for the Steelers?
Most impressive.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's that hard to find. And it was Kyle Allen's one throw in the middle to Pat Freiermuth. Literally, I was watching upstairs with my dad, and I was like, that's the best throw we've seen all game.
That's a good throw. That might have been as good a throw as we've seen in a couple of years.
Yeah.
But you notice what the reaction was. Like they pulled him out immediately. They were like, none of that.
Yeah, but like that's how sad the state is of the Pittsburgh offense is our number 3 quarterback to begin the year, who's our number 2 because we're too scared to play Russell Wilson because of a calf injury, came in and threw the best ball against probably the best team we've seen all year. That's our season in a nutshell, gentlemen. But we better move on because we've spent an hour talking about this game, believe it or not.
You could spend another hour talking about it.
Oh, I know. Let's not, though. But
ugly.
The Steelers do travel west this week. They're headed to the city that never sleeps, Sin City, Las Vegas. Raiders are on the schedule this week. I don't know about you, but I'm not putting money anywhere near this game, even though we will predict it later. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk up some matchups. I'm going to kick us off real quick because it's kind of worth noting on the injury report. Max Crosby has not practiced at all these past 2 days, and it has not been noted as like a rest type of deal. He was banged up in the last game with an ankle injury. It sounds like he may have tweaked it further. So if the football gods are gracing us again with another star defender that we don't have to play.
Yeah, well, they already lost. They already are down 2. They're two.
I was about to say they're down their other guys too. So like Malcolm Kuntz, I think was the other guy to start the year. He's out for the majority of the year. The guy behind him is out. So they
Jenkins is out, is he not? I think Jenkins got hurt on the defensive line. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Watkins, the big guy they just signed this offseason, he's going to be out. It sounds like the rest of the year. So I kind of
that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, Watkins was out, but I think Devontae Adams, right, is also hurt. So
yeah. So I mean, I can go through it, but Jacoby Myers has not practiced at all this week. Max Crosby hasn't. Devontae Adams hasn't. Tommy Eichenberg, it looks like regressed and did not practice today. Michael Mayer, their second tight end, is not looking like to play. Jackson Powers Johnson, a guy that if you've been following this podcast for a while, the guy we talked about at length for a little bit this offseason, he has not practiced at all. Zamir White has also not practiced. So, they're playing a Raiders team, which is pretty down right now. So it'll be interesting to see there. But I think our offensive line actually has a chance to actually have favorable matchups across the board because of how bad the Raiders are hurt. So this better be the get right week for the offensive line, or that this season truly is in a tailspin, and it's over as we know it. So
didn't we just say the same thing last week about Dallas and who they were missing on defense? It's like we ended up with they lost their top 3 edge rushers.
Yep.
Sound familiar?
Yeah.
And they lost, it's like the Steelers offensive line was supposed to get right with them or whatever. And,
But
just
but
saying.
that
I don't
that
think Max Crosby is expected to be out though. I would have.
okay. Yeah, I mean he's probably gonna play. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
not to mention he had one of the more memorable clips from this past week too. So Bo Nix is trying to audible, and Max Crosby is yelling at him from across the line. They don't know what they're fucking doing. That was just one of the better one line Mike pickups that the NFL had last week. So, but so either way, I feel like the Steelers could have a chance to. I won't say impose your will at this point because that's just not happening in my opinion. But it at least looks like across the board they have some favorable matchups when it comes to our offensive line versus their defensive line. So, Will, how about another matchup here?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to dwell on it because we don't even know if he's going to play. But if Max Crosby plays and is something approaching 100%, that I hate that matchup.
Yikes!
All day long against Broderick Jones. That is just bad in every possible way. Really like Max Crosby. He's an easy to root for guy. Got his life together and has been really both an amazing player and is also a really interesting and dynamic guy off the field. We'll leave that guy go. In a way, I'm only half joking. The biggest matchup is the Steelers traveling west and playing the Raiders. 2 things that they never seem to be able to do very well, no matter what the game situation is and the injury situation is. Secondly, the Steelers' injury situation is terrible. It's terrible. Yes, the Raiders' situation is bad, but Steelers' injury is bad as well. But let's talk about the ex-Steeler, who I possibly is leading the NFL in tackles right now, and that would be Robert Spillane. The ability of our young guys on the interior to be able to, and actually, it's probably just as much for our new lineup with the, Mason McCormick, I guess is going to be the right guard, right? In this week. So this matchup against Spillane, are they going to be able to get off of the Dallas defensive line and make it to Spillane before Spillane makes plays? Because I think Spillane is a guy that can wreck your running game for starters and is very good in coverage, much better than he was allowed to show in Pittsburgh. They took him out in passing situations, of course. But I think he's turned into a really hell of a player for the Raiders. And one of the few guys they have who's been having good seasons the last couple of years. So that's a matchup that interests me. Not sure I love it for the Steelers standpoint, but both of those, Max Crosby and Robert Spillane, that's going to require some attention if they're both in the game.
Yeah, Korey, what's the matchup you want to highlight?
Yeah, Korey might have been frozen.
Yeah.
So didn't want to talk about these matchups. So throw it to you, Jeremy.
Yeah. I will say this. For a week where our secondary did not look good this past week, they almost have no excuses not to play well this week with no Devontae Adams, probably. Doesn't look like Jacoby Myers is trending in the right direction. I will say this, though. Little guy Trey Tucker has been a favorite target in the past, and he's actually gotten some more targets as the season has gone on. He is the type of wide receiver very much in the Josh Downs mold that absolutely killed us 2 weeks ago. So he has a chance to, if the rate, I'm worried about that because just of what we've shown being able to cover slot guys in the past, but then this year especially. So be on the lookout for Trey Tucker. We better be ready for him, else he's gonna make us pay. Looks like we got Korey back here. Korey, what's a matchup you want to highlight?
I just wanted to say one thing. I think I'd rather have Robert Spillane than Patrick Queen, point blank.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I don't even really question that too much. It's just he's better, and I think he's getting paid like a quarter or a third of the amount. So that's just one thing. Yeah. So I also, if you look at their schedule, they've played the Browns and the Ravens pretty tight. this is going to be a tight game. I think I feel like they play an AFC North brand of football. I think his name's Antonio Pierce. I think
Yeah,
that's
head coach. Yeah.
of he's of that style and mentality. I think it's just Brock Bowers is when you're in a tight game, that's the kind of guy that could go and rumble on you for 70 yards in the fourth quarter and be a game breaker. So he's really the only person on their whole team where I'm like, other than Max Crosby, who we've covered, but I think Brock Bowers is that guy who can just break out on that tight game and kind of just kill the game for you.
Yeah, he had a big one this past week.
He sure
broke
did.
off for his first NFL touchdown. It was like a 51-yarder. High pointed a ball, broke a tackle, and ran the rest of the way. So,
but what do you guys make of Adrian? Is it O'Connell? Sorry,
Aiden O'Connell.
Yeah, Aiden O'Connell. That's it. What was your take on him coming out? What do you think about this move by the Raiders to move to McConnell as the starter?
So I'm going to tackle this one first, real quick, Korey, because I have a very unique relationship with Aiden O'Connell to a degree.
He's your son. Congratulations.
No, ha ha ha! Very funny. If so, he hasn't paid the bills in a while. No, but being a Hoosier fan, I've had the luxury of watching Aiden O'Connell for the last 3 or 4 years when he was in college. So he was someone I was very familiar with. I never thought he would really amount to much in the NFL, but he is one of those guys where he does know where to put the ball. He has above average tools for the position. He is a very smart guy. So, very much kind of like Kyle Allen is in Pittsburgh right now. I think he can come in and I won't say provide a spark, but I feel like he is a guy that can be one of those better custodians of an offense and be able to move the ball. Now, he doesn't have a lot out there right now, but coming out, I thought he was definitely going to go undrafted with a chance to make a roster as a third quarterback. But I question moving to him, other than I think they're just looking for a spark more than anything. So, Korey, what were your thoughts on O'Connell, I guess?
Tank commander. I think that's my thoughts. I think it doesn't really matter who's piloting back there. They need a different guy. So
that's fair.
They need a different tank.
Yeah.
different unit.
Yep.
What's funny about the Raiders is every once in a while they play a game where you're just like, they're one of those teams. Every once in a while they play a game where you're like, oh, this team's actually pretty good. And then the following 3 or 4 are so bad. So I feel like you just hope that you don't catch them on that night when they put it all together for a week,
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's like I with the way that the situation is with the talent levels, it's very hard for me to even imagine picking the Raiders in this game, even as banged up as the Steelers are. But the injuries are a thing. The mojo of the Steelers is a thing. The going west and playing the Raiders and just being, for some reason, that team that has your number, man, that is all those are really bad omens I'm going to ignore right now. But they're not nothing. As I said last week, there is a path for the opponent to win, even though it doesn't seem likely right now. But it's the NFL, and the margin of victory, the margin between teams is not very much, man. If it just happens to be a couple plays that go their way early in the game, it could be enough.
Yeah, and you mentioned the injury report. I'll just highlight some other things real quick. Monte Casey has not practiced Wednesday, Thursday, so it looks like he's trending in the wrong direction with an ankle injury. Jalen Warren has actually logged 2 light practices, so maybe he gets elevated and plays a little this week. We'll see. It's kind of been a season-long thing ever since training camp with that knee injury, seeing how it is. So hopefully he's on the mend. Alex Highsmith logged a light practice today. Trending in the right direction. I'd be shocked if he played. Honestly, it looks like Jeremiah Moon's going to make his. I don't know. I don't know if it's his first NFL start, but it's his first start for Pittsburgh. Anyway, Michael Pruitt is kind of back in the swing of things with 2 light practices. Probably won't play. Cameron Hayward has not practiced at all this week. The Tuesday it was, rest related, but Wednesday and Thursday show just do not practice. But at this point, who
I'm
the
not
hell?
sure you played on Sunday either. We have to go back and check.
Yeah, pretty. DeMarvin Leal looks like he's going to be out for a little while longer with a neck. Still no practices. Larry Ogunjobi light practice today. Kind of, I think that's more of a maintenance thing with him. For he you don't know it or whatever, you wouldn't think it, but he's actually been in the league now for quite a few years, so he's definitely a veteran. Could probably use his days off. Pat Fryermuth popped up on the injury report, I believe with a calf injury, but he did do a light practice today. So we'll see. We'll see. Like you said, injuries can really maim a team. So with that being said, the Steelers are not the only team in the NFL playing a
Oh
ball.
God, we have to pick games.
I know, right? So we're going to start off with a pretty good one. It's two teams heading in the right direction. Arizona with a comeback win over the 49ers last week are traveling to Green Bay to take on the Packers. The Packers are favored by 5 at home. Korey, I'll throw it to you first. Who do you like?
Sorry, is Packers and who else it cut out?
Sorry, Arizona going
Arizona.
to Green Bay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I think the Packers are starting to find their gear again. I'm gonna go Packers. I like the Cardinals. I think the Packers are starting to. I just like how Jordan Love plays football. They throw it around. They're aggressive. I don't know. At home, especially, I think we go with the Packers.
Don't you dare bring up throw it around and Packers on this podcast, okay? Like, talk about one thing we'd love more in Pittsburgh. Will, what are your thoughts on this one?
Oh, I actually like what Arizona's doing. I think they're trending to be better than we thought they might have been at the beginning of the year. But playing Green Bay in Green Bay, right when the weather has turned a little bit, and the Packers get Jordan Love healthy, I sort of feel like the Packers are, maybe not a super easy win, but that they'll figure out a way.
Gotcha. I would tend to agree. Jordan Love finally looks like he's back. Thank God that injury wasn't as bad as it looked in week one. That just would have been a really real bummer for the Packers this year. I like the Packers, even if they are down a few of their receivers. It feels like just people step up for them and actually play. So I like the Packers here too. But I think the Arizona Cardinals. I think they're a much better team than I thought they were going to be. Kyler Murray's definitely played better, but he only has until October 25th before the new Call of Duty comes out. So sorry, I love that joke. It's just too damn funny every time. I can't get away from it. But so I like the Packers to win. I don't know about covering though. 5 seems like a lot. The Cardinals defense has been playing pretty well, and then their offense has moved the ball at times too. So we'll see. Another good one. Tampa Bay has head to New Orleans. New Orleans in a little bit of a search of their offense the past few weeks too. Sounds familiar. Tampa Bay is favored to win by 3.5. We'll start with you.
It's one of those games where if you judge by the totality of what they've done this season, it's one way. If you judge by kind of like how they look the last week or two, it's a little different. So I guess we're trying to determine, is what's happening to New Orleans' offense, is that a trend or not? Is it just like a fluke? I tend to think that New Orleans is a lot better a football team than Tampa Bay, and that by the end of the year, that will be more obvious. But I was sort of down on Tampa Bay at the beginning of the year, and they won some games for sure. I will take the first team, New Orleans, for the upset.
Okay.
Although I know they're playing a backup quarterback, but
Does Barry say Spencer Rattler making his first
Spencer
career?
Rattler, which I think that'll give them a little juice actually.
Okay, Korey.
Yeah, I'm with Will. Gunslinging rookie who's coming in first game. I don't know. It just seems like it has all the ingredients for big spark for the offense. I don't know. I think Rattler's the kind of guy who you get 3 games out of him where it's going to be, oh, wow, this guy can really play. And then it's just going to peter off from there. But we're at the very beginning of that. So I'm going to go with the Saints here.
Jeremy, did you ever see one of those rocket launches like for when they're doing experimental rockets that just goes awry from the launch and it just up the wrong direction and like explodes, a mile away? Like that's Spencer Rattler.
Yeah,
But
it's looking good. It's looking good. Oh, the engine just
something
went.
went wrong. Yeah.
Oh, there it goes. Yeah.
Oh, the humanity.
I'm going to take Tampa Bay here. They come off kind of a game in Atlanta last week where it sure kind of felt like they were in it till the very end, and then they got unlucky. Atlanta got the ball first in overtime. They went down and scored. Their offense has been doing really nice things this year. I don't know what the chemistry is going to look like for Rattler in the offense. I think there could be a bit of adjustment there. I know Rattler at his press conference said, we need to get Olave the ball more and everything. And that's probably the one thing that does scare me is if the passing attack does take off from New Orleans, I think it could be a very long day for Tampa Bay. But until that happens, I'm going to take Tampa Bay. Their defensive line can get after it a little bit with Logan Hall, a few of the other guys there. So I'll take Tampa Bay in a nail biter. So I agree with you as I think Rattler could provide a spark. Might just be a spark this week and more of a fire next week. Another big game. Washington is headed to Baltimore. Baltimore is favored by 6.5. I'll take the start on this one. I hate to say it, but I think the rookie sensation, Jaden Daniels, for as much as I liked him coming out, I liked him better than Williams and all that. I thought he would. I don't think anyone thought he'd be this good to start, but I do think it kind of returns down a little bit this week. I think Baltimore has a pretty good defense, not elite. I think they're going to try to do some things to take away what's been effective for Jaden Daniels. Make him actually sit in the pocket. Don't rush him. Make him make throws on time. Blitz occasionally, but he's been great against the blitz this year. So I might ask him to truly beat him with our arm. I don't know if the running game is going to be that great. One thing you can always count on Baltimore is their defensive line is very hard to block and makes things tough. So I like Baltimore. 6.5, though. It's a lot. I don't like them covering. I do think Washington will be able to move the ball. I don't. I think 6.5 is a lot. So I don't like that. Will, I'll throw it to you next.
You guys see the opening game of the season with Baltimore and Kansas City?
Yeah.
I think that's the kind of game you're in for, except for Baltimore plays the part of Kansas City in this game. So I don't expect that either team is going to be all that great at stopping the other, but Baltimore either has the ball last and wins or, makes one or two more plays that are the difference in the game. I expect a high scoring game, take the over, and it could be that they can figure out a way to slow down Daniels, but I'm not sure that's how Baltimore is really winning right now. The only way they're stopping offenses is by keeping them off the field with possessing the football.
True.
But I think Baltimore sneaky right now. If not the best team in the league, they're top 5, and I don't think Washington is quite there yet.
Yeah. Korey, we'll throw it to you next.
Yeah, I think this is a tough one just because, the Commanders have been so surprising. Jaden Daniels has really been firing. I think I'm kind of with Will. I think the Commanders are actually pretty solid, but I think it's similar to that first game where the Ravens just kind of managed to pull out a win, kind of how the Chiefs did. And so I'm going to go with the Ravens here. They're, beat the Cowboys, beat the Bills, beat the Bengals. I think this is almost a bit of a breather game where it's just kind of like, we're not facing, which again could make it a trap game, but I don't know. I just think that the Ravens are just a better overall team, and I think that the Commanders, as good as they've been playing, aren't necessarily a 5-1 team. I think this is kind of level, the water finding its level.
Gotcha. Let's go to a game on the East Coast here. Buffalo is headed to New York to take on the Jets. The newly lost their head coach, Jets. Robert Saleh was fired on Tuesday. Boy, quite a saga again. And nothing, you wouldn't expect anything less than the Big Apple. They love to make big claims and not back it up. Especially if you're a Jets fan. and Giants. God, talk about a miserable city for fans to be in during football year, the season, well, like the past few years. But anyway, Buffalo is they're favored by 2.5 here. Korey, I'll start with you.
I don't know. I'm usually a believer in the head coaching changes when it's in good faith, but I'm not sure that this one necessarily was. I don't know if this is going to be a inspired players situation. I could just see this beginning the dysfunction for the Jets. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just going to be the route I go with. I think the Bills win this one handily.
That's exactly why I included this game in Pick'em this week. It's always that unique dynamic. Well, what are your thoughts on this one?
I'm exactly with Korey that I believe in the new head coach, energy for like a week. And I'm like Korey. I'm going with the new coach energy. I think Baltimore is, if I think you talked about before with, I'm sorry, Buffalo is in a situation that you talked with Baltimore before, where it's a little bit of like a we can breathe game. But I think it's actually, they can't lose sight of the fact it's a division game, and as you know, the NFL division games are always tight anyway.
Right.
And sometimes a little bit of extra vibe maybe is all it really takes to win a division game. Where even though if you believe that the Jets are not a better football team than Buffalo, this week for 1 week, I think they might be. I think Buffalo is a much better team overall, but they have shown some flaws this year. They've had their moments where they looked uneven for stretches of time, and this could be a week where you have a rejuvenated Aaron Rodgers, even though he says he didn't have anything to do with the firing. I'm sure he's reasonably happy about it, but I guarantee you the fans are totally in favor. They were ready to like ditch this guy a couple of years ago. As a close friend of mine wrote to me, I wish they had left him in London.
Oh boy, that's funny.
He can pay his own way home.
This is a tough one for me too because Buffalo is banged up, and Ed Oliver did not play last week. That they're banged up at some key positions. Doesn't look like Khalil Shakir is going to play this week. I want to take the Jets. Like my heart says I gotta take Buffalo, but my head says take the Jets. I'm gonna go with the Jets. I can't believe I'm gonna say it. My buddy Justice is gonna give me a lot of shit for this, but I'm gonna take the Jets. That's his team. So we'll see. But I mean, bottom line, Aaron Rodgers has to stop turning the ball over. He's got to start playing better. I know he's preaching accountability across like the rest of the team. Take some ownership yourself, you ashwagandha loving hippie, or whatever, Ishwada or whatever that black cave retreat was. But that brings us to our 5-star game of the week.
Oh yeah, baby!
5 stars, you know it. Steelers are heading out west, take on the Raiders. I'll start off with this one. I think Pittsburgh wins. Just another nitty gritty nail biter. It's going to be super ugly. If you bet the under, folks, bet the under because it's going to be ugly. It feels like it's going to be like a 20-13 type of game again, and 2 touchdowns is, I don't know. That might be asking for too much. Steeler Fury faithful, but I'll go with Pittsburgh 2013. Korey, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be. They played the other 2 AFC North teams close. I don't know, 17-14, nail biter, too ugly. But I'm just. It is what it is with this team at this point. 17-14 Pittsburgh.
Okay, Will.
We're all picking the Steelers. It's going to make me nervous.
Mary saying we're dooming our chances.
I mean, I think you have to pick them because if unless something super unexpected happens, they should win. But as we all know, should win and traveling out west to play the Raiders don't go together very well. They go together like, fish and bicycles. By the way, I just checked the over under, I think is 34.5. Is that right?
Oh my God.
Or is it 36.5? I can't read. Sorry.
I'll bring up MGM here. That's where I normally go to get our bets for the day.
Oh no, go. Thank God. 36.5.
36.5. Yeah.
And I just think they haven't quite. The Vegas still hasn't really accepted who the Steelers are. But I was going to say, I hear you guys describing the game and the score, and I'm like, I harken back to whoever that announcer on the broadcast was, who said, why is every Steelers game exactly the same?
Could have printed the same
The
score.
Steelers are like the missionary position married couple that's been together for decades. It's like it's like we all look forward to Sunday and that there's going to be a game, and then it's like, meat and potatoes.
Yeah. Welcome to our nightmare. The rest
Not a lot of adventure or surprises. I just feel like, the combination of, they don't really have enough stuff going on. If the Raiders were super healthy and kind of looked like they were on the verge of putting it together, I might be tempted to pick them in this game because the Steelers are so beat up and kind of dysfunctional right now. But I expect it to be a sloppy game and not very much scoring. I was debating whether to make it 1913 or 1916. I feel good about 19 for the Steelers. Seem to be about the right number. I'm going to make it 19. Boy, it's tough to say 16. I'll make it 1916 Steelers. Just feel like, it's another one of those games where you're playing indoors, and the Steelers seem to be playing a lot of bend don't break, meaning the teams get into field goal range and domes. So yeah, we'll call it 1916. I just, very worried about the depth. If the Steelers lose an edge rusher, like by the way, here's my rant for this week. They lost they lost their second edge rusher, their third edge rusher, their fourth edge rusher, injured in the game with the Leal, and they're not going to sign anybody. They didn't, they had a choice of like a lot of guys that they could have signed. Even if you say, well, they don't want to sign someone off the practice squad because they have to keep that guy for 3 games and the other guys are going to be back, et cetera, et cetera. But even so, they were actual free agents out there who could have come in and provided something. I don't really understand the mentality of we're going to play Isaiah Loudermilk as the edge rusher number 4. That's ridiculous. And I don't really understand the reasoning that we feel like we can't get guys, someone off the street to play edge rusher. We don't feel like we can get Roman Wilson in the hat. It's a weird time in Steelers land. Anyway, 1916 Steelers, and let us hope that they don't lose any more edge rushers or cornerbacks or wide receivers or running backs because or offensive tackles. Like we got some real problems depth wise.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Loudermilk thing because I forgot to bring it up earlier. It's not like we're a college team and we ran out of scholarship edge rushers to where like there are no more to go get. It's like, you only have what you have. This is the NFL. Guys come off couches and play. Like we've seen it like a few times this year, even. So that when I think it was you shared that in our text group, I would have loved to like gotten a picture of my reaction to that. It's like we're going to ask our 6'4", 300-pound guy to go play outside linebacker edge for us. What? Like if this would have been DeMarvin Leal, I would have been like, okay, he's got some background there. It's like we do use him there, but it's like this is some stiff schmuck that can't bend the edge.
Jeremy, I think there are at least 3, possibly 4 guys available who had been on the Steelers roster in preseason, meaning at some point in the last couple of years, they had them in-house. Right. And they at least could have run, know roughly what's going on with the system and so on and so forth. One of those guys was the leading edge rusher in the UFL last year and is a free agent right now. He's a street free agent that the Steelers used to have in-house, Hita Tamovailoa. So it's like they even had the opportunity to have somebody who has been in their building before and put a uniform on for them who could be available to them and offer something as like a wave pass rusher coming off the bench. Like, I don't know, man.
It like do you like for that discussion between like Omar Khan and like Coach Tomlin? Do you think that's like Omar Khan coming to Tomlin being like, "Hey, we've got some guys we can bring in," and do you think it's Tomlin just being like, "Nah, man, we're fine. We'll do what we do," or do you truly think Tomlin's like, "No, I don't want to disrupt my team any further at this point," like with bringing people in? I don't know. I mean, it's an asinine argument to make. So I don't know.
You don't ask me to try to explain, man.
Yeah.
It's you're so afraid of your own shadow. It's like the remote possibility that something might be a mistake, might make something worse, outweighs the potential, the reasonable potential of being better. There's that tiny risk, and that outweighs everything.
So I'm gonna end the podcast on kind of building off of that. What does Mike Tomlin have to lose as the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers? We all know he's not getting fired. He just signed a 3-year extension. So what the hell is up with this lackadaisical, not give a shit approach? Sorry, now I'm going on a rant. But if there was ever a coach to say, screw it, let's just go out and try to freaking do something, let's do it. We're talking about the most secure head coaching job in the NFL. And he's afraid to do shit. I'm not parsing my words at this point anymore. It's ludicrous that we are at the stage with Mike Tomlin.
Listen, I know you guys got my back on this. The moment that never had a losing season starts to get in jeopardy, they'll open up the offense. When the season's over and they can't get, never had a losing season anymore, suddenly they'll be throwing it 40 times a game. It's like clockwork.
Yep.
I know.
Never had a losing season. That's what there is to lose.
Never had a freaking losing season. Yes, I did just throw my pen. But with that being said, I wrap it up here. Thank you all for sticking with us on our long, lengthy rant of a podcast this week. I'm your host.
Wait till next week. If they lose this game, you set your watches to see the podcast if that happens, because that'll be the.
Yeah, if you want, if I said earlier that Pittsburgh needs an implosion for the season to go away, you wait till next week, and if we lose, we might have an implosion on this show. With that being said, thank you for tuning into another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman, joined by the best in the business, Wil Masisak, Korey Karbowsky. Yeah, I guess this is my half-hearted "here we go" Steelers question mark, as always, when it comes to this team. So,
hey, man, take it as it comes. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste, Steelers.